Good evening. Tonight we are going to discuss the cauldron and its place in pagan and Wiccan practice. The cauldron is a common tool in Wicca and in paganism. It has a great deal of history and tradition associated with it. It is the vessel where magical transformations occur, such as brewing and cooking, along with much more mystical purposes. It is also sometimes used to light a fire at certain ceremonies. Not all of them, just some of them. There are many cauldrons throughout world history, and they often take different shapes. You will find cauldrons in mythologies all around the world. Historically, some of the oldest cauldrons did turn up in Scandinavia, such as the one found in Denmark. It was a silver cauldron dating back to approximately the 1st century before the Common Era, or BCE. It may have had an initiatory or sacrificial role around that time. We're still not 100% sure. A much more modern example would be the cauldron in which the Olympic flame burned during the Olympic Games. This rather ancient practice was revived at the Olympic Games in Berlin in 1936. Mythological examples of cauldrons include the Holy Grail. Though it's technically a chalice, it really is still a vessel for magical transformation, so you can place it along the same category. You could also instead place it in the chalice category. Other mythological cauldrons are the Cauldron of Dagda, from which no company ever left unsatisfied. There were also cauldrons which were said to be able to tell a brave man from a coward. So many different cauldrons throughout different mythologies had different powers, essentially. They were not all the same. Wiccans see the cauldron as a powerful symbol of the goddess. It is a manifestation of fertility and of femininity. It is associated with the element of water and the West, and has connections with reincarnation and rebirth. Depending on the ritual, the cauldron itself may be used for different purposes. In spring or summer, it might be filled with water and flowers to represent the season. In winter, a fire might be lit within it. For this reason, you're going to need something sturdy for your cauldron, if you choose to use one at all. Remember, not everybody wishes to use a cauldron. But if you do, you're going to need something to resist heat. Now, because it is small and easy to transport, I brought my smallest cauldron. This is just 3 inches across. Now, I use it to light fires and do small spell work because it is small and easy to transport. It's easy to clean because it's tiny, and it is a traditional cauldron shape. Now, I brought this one out again because it's easy to transport. I wasn't going to bring the big one. It is fairly heavy. I didn't want to have to drag it across the yard. It's a little large. But you want something that can resist heat. This is cast iron, just like its larger cousins. It is solid cast iron, which means I can burn flames within it. Whether I'm doing a small spell candle or whether I am letting this burn for longer, the cast iron will resist the heat. It should also rest. This is another reason I brought a small one, because I can show you easier. I can lift it and move it around. But you also want something that has 3 little legs. Not little if your cauldron is larger. Obviously, this one has little legs because it's a little cauldron. But you also want something that has 3 legs, as is traditional. And you can have 2 different styles. You obviously would like a handle for ease of moving. Moving a cauldron like so when it's heavy is not fun. A handle for ease of moving. But there are 2 styles of cauldron. This one has a wide mouth, wider than the base. You can also get cauldrons that have a narrower mouth. Which one you use is entirely up to you. You do not have to have a certain style. I like a more open style because I tend to add things as I'm using them. So with the exception of one cauldron, I have 6, which might seem excessive, but I rather enjoy the look. I enjoy the look of them, so I like having them. I have 2 smaller ones, 2 medium size, one that is larger but not as large as the largest one I have. These are the smallest, easy for spells. So if you are going to use a cauldron to cast spells where you burn herbs or burn a candle down, something this size is quite ideal and is easy to transport and easy to use. But you should definitely buy the size that you will use the most often. If you really like them, if you really like cauldrons, you might have a few, and you might have them in a few different sizes. That, of course, is your choice, if you choose to have them at all. Not everybody likes a cauldron. I do. I love the look. It makes me feel witchy. Not everyone enjoys them. Now, if you are going to use cauldrons, iron lids are recommended that go with them, cast iron lids, because you can use these to smother flame if you need to put the fire out quickly. So having a little lid that fits tightly, you can just slide it over. You just slide the lid on top and your flame will be doused, because fire needs oxygen to continue to burn. So if you add a lid, you can quench that fire pretty quickly. You can have difficulty finding ones in the right size, but if you are interested in using cauldrons, I suggest getting something small and inexpensive, still cast iron, but small and inexpensive, while you decide if you want to invest in larger ones, because larger ones can be quite expensive. These smaller ones you can get for under $50 usually. A larger one could run several hundred. My largest was, I think, $400. It was rather expensive. So you definitely want to consider whether or not it is worth it to you. Start with something smaller and get something larger. Like I've mentioned, there are different sizes available. You definitely want to get a size that meets your needs. So if you are practicing solitary, you probably don't need as large a cauldron as a coven would, because you only have to manage your own spells and rituals, not for a larger group. A larger group may have a larger cauldron, especially if it's used for brewing. So the different ways you can use a cauldron. Well, they can be used for scrying if they're filled with water. Remember, a cast iron cauldron is already pitch black. It's already dark enough to stop the reflection of light. So yes, you can use a cauldron for scrying. That's typically what I use my larger one for. That's why it's filled with water and far too heavy to move. My smaller ones tend to be filled with ash, and they're not clean. This one happened to be clean. So the cauldron can also be used for brewing and cooking if you are of a mind to do so. I don't cook in mine, to be honest. I will occasionally use them to brew tinctures and stuff like that, things you're not consuming. But because I put some pretty odd things in mine, I don't really want to brew something that we're going to consume in a cauldron. And you wouldn't brew in something this size. This is awfully small. But if you have a dedicated small cauldron that you would like to use to mix your incenses and even mix something you might consume, that's all right. But if you are going to use it for food, I would dedicate it to just that purpose. I wouldn't use the cauldron that you typically fill with ash to cook your meal. But you can definitely use them for cooking. Most of us today, though, will just use a pot on the stove to cook. We're not living in medieval times. We do not require a cauldron for cooking. It's more for ambiance and for what it represents. It's not necessarily something you have to have in order to cook. So do consider if you are going to even want one for cooking. I don't use one for cooking. The use of the cauldron has a long and varied history, from the magical and ceremonial to the mundane. In Wiccan and pagan practice, it is a respected and well-used tool, embodying the very essence of femininity. Thank you for joining us as we discussed the uses and basic history of the cauldron. Blessed be.